Hey guys, it's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. My heart is full knowing that you're here today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for women looking for an authentic, supportive community to learn about wellness from all angles and who want to just feel their best. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to find what works for you, because we all bring different experiences and knowledge to the table. No pun intended. Health is not a one-size-fits-all. By feeling our best, we're able to show up in our purpose, and that allows us to live the most joyful life, even in the most challenging times. Together, we're going to grow by learning to align ourselves and taking some simple, actionable steps that feel right for you. We're going to talk about self-care. We'll talk about nutrition, daily toxins. We'll talk food swaps. We'll definitely be talking about mindset and reframing our thoughts because it's so important. I hope that you leave today feeling more empowered and at ease. And I hope that you can take one or two small steps to be able to create the you that you want to be. Are you ready for all the possibilities? If you said yes, say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to spend some time with me today. I am super excited to have Sharon on today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is toxins and all things non-toxic. Sharon Long is a wellness ambassador whose passion is in educating moms on how to avoid toxins in everyday life products to help protect their families. Her goal is to help busy moms confidently read the product labels so they can make informed decisions without wasting time or money. Sharon has been in the field for over 10 years and says her favorite thing is when clients or friends reach out and tell her that they've found a favorite swap. Sharon is a wife and a homeschool mom to two teenagers. She lives on her family lives on a mini farm in a small town in New Hampshire. Sharon and I met around 2019, I believe, through my sister. And I'm just super excited that you're here today. So if you would you just kind of tell everybody a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to where you are today? Because obviously you just didn't wake up one day and poof, everything was magic, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be on your podcast. Congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you.
So my journey started in 2009. My mom was diagnosed with kidney cancer, what was seemingly completely out of the blue. We thought she was perfectly healthy. And she wound up getting this cancer diagnosis, which was a huge blow to our family. It was, like I said, it was completely out of the blue. We thought, you must have the wrong patient. Like, this isn't happening to us. But unfortunately, by the time she was diagnosed, the cancer had already spread to several of her other organs. It started in the kidneys and had spread to several other organs. And they told us she only had 6 months to live. And they were wrong. Unfortunately, she passed away only 4 months later. It was a really, really fast progression. And the one thing that really stuck with me throughout this diagnosis and talking to the doctors was we were asking, like, where did this come from? And, what can we do to prevent it or stop it? And they said, well, the one thing they do know is that it's not from her genetics. It's not she didn't inherit it from anyone. And the good news is that her kids, didn't need to worry about inheriting this from her. But they didn't know where it came from. So I wound up learning that cancers these days, only 10% of cancers these days are due to genetics, and 90% are from some other environmental factor, whatever that may be. And so I kind of took this information and ran with it, thinking, all right, this has been a tragedy in my family, but I can take this information and do something positive with it, because I have 90% that I can work with, that I can do something to, protect myself, protect my family. And then, the 10% you just kind of have to let go of. So I went on this journey of learning about, well, where does this other 90% come from? And one of the things that I learned that was just so shocking to me is that a lot of our personal care products that we use every single day, and I'm talking about, shampoo and deodorant and your makeup and your skincare and, anything that you put on your skin, really. A lot of the conventional products that we find on our store shelves contain toxic ingredients, some of which are known carcinogens. And that was just so shocking to me because I figured.
Right. Because you think, well, if it's sold in the stores and it's on the shelves, somebody must be regulating something, right? Isn't it like
Exactly.
crazy though, when you find out how much like Europe bans and then how little we in the United States? I think that was for me, when I found out that fact, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, okay, so we can't really rely on anybody to have our backs in this situation. We really need to learn and educate. And like you, I think around the same time as when I fell into beginning to learn about it. And I was, just like you, very shocked. And I think I was most upset because I was being so greenwashed because I had bought things like California Baby and, Method, and like, because we had a diagnosis for my daughter, which was all smells and scents needed to get out of the house. And so I threw everything out. Everything was gone. I think she was like 3 or 4 or 5, something like that. And that started my journey of like starting to read, and I would go and, this is all natural and it looks great and safe. And so a couple of years of doing that. And then when I was introduced to like what actual toxins were, I was like, are you kidding me? Like I literally been still lathering my kids and stuff. And I was unknowingly doing it because the product labels looked great. So that was really frustrating. What were some of the things that when you first started to learn about it, where was your first jumping off point? Like, what did you start with? Because it's overwhelming sometimes.
It's absolutely overwhelming. So as far as learning to read my labels, the thing that really kind of clicked in my brain is I remember someone talking about the term fragrance and how like exactly what you were saying, with your daughter, that if your products contain the ingredient fragrance, that is a toxic ingredient. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. That's not true. Like, because I started looking at my bottles and I'm like, everything contains fragrance, even surprisingly, even some unscented products contain the ingredient fragrance. So that was the starting off point for me. And like I said, I went through this I don't know, denial, thinking that, well, the fragrance thing can't be true. But then once I started digging a little deeper and I realized, oh yeah, fragrance actually is something we should be avoiding, whether you have, some kind of, scent sensitivity or not. The products go on our skin and they can be absorbed through our skin. So I wound up a little bit, well, I guess I'm trying to think if it was the same time frame. I guess it was the same time frame. I was working as a veterinary technician, and one of the jobs that I did as the vet tech was helping out with surgeries. And so if there was a major surgery, like an abdominal surgery or like a declaw on a cat or something that was very major, the animal would get a pain patch. We'd like shave their fur and put the pain patch right on their skin. And the doctors explained and the veterinarians explained that this pain medicine goes straight to their skin. And as long as the pain patch was on, they would get this continuous, pain control. And so fast forward to my mom and learning about products that go on our skin, that's all I could think about was these pain patches. And I'm like, of course it absorbs, whatever we put on our skin goes into our bloodstream. So yeah, I would say fragrance was my first kind of thought of, oh, that's the ingredient I'm going to try to avoid. And then one thing that I learned as far as kind of where to start product wise is to start with your head or your armpits. Those are really, sensitive areas that absorb very quickly. So I made a big, I was really trying to switch out my deodorant because I felt like that was a place that I wanted to start with.
Yeah, and deodorant's super important just because you're right, it goes directly into your glands and um, normally when you start changing deodorant, I think it's like everyone's kind of first like, but I can't go
Yeah.
without deodorant. And I mean, it's like a detox process and all that. As far as
Yeah.
the fragrance goes, I think when I found out that like you could hide stuff in
Hmm.
fragrance, that's again where I was like, who's protecting us here, you know? And then
Yeah.
on your label, it can be, you know, perfume, parfum, or
Yep.
fragrance. And it's
Yep.
like, and you're hiding like what they call it, like their trade secrets or whatever. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, oh my gosh, are you creating me like crazy?
Yeah.
Um,
And that can hide literally thousands of different ingredients. And
mhm.
it's a legal loophole that companies can use to just use a smattering of whatever ingredients they feel is necessary or that they want. And we, as the consumer, really have no way of finding out what that is because it just falls under that umbrella term.
Yeah. And again, I think there's such a disservice because there's so much greenwashing. So for anybody who doesn't know, greenwashing is looking at a product and looking at that label and looking the front is marketing, right? So it
Yeah.
markets to us what we want to see, but until you learn how to actually read the ingredients, you're again, I would have to say or venture to say that most of the products in the store that are conventional, even if they say organic, even if they say, you know, no sulfates or, you know, they'll put the buzzwords, no
Yeah.
parabens, no this, you turn it over
Yeah.
and then there's fragrance. And it's just
Yeah.
like, just very disheartening. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that search for products for people, I think is a big one. And so before we get into the whole crunchy thing, one of the things that, you know, in my journey of learning, and I was just curious for you, like the EWG was something that we first started to use and the Think
Yeah.
Dirty app. And
Yeah.
for people who are just looking and trying to figure out, those are two like go-tos that I tell people. But
Yeah.
the other thing is, and I think you can attest to this from being part of Crunchy, is like when you find a company that you actually trust
Yeah.
and you work for and you know that they're doing right by people, it's just such an easy way to not have to then read labels, right? So
Hmm.
I always tell people I just find the brands that I trust and know and like, and I just stick and I don't really sway a lot away. So I guess for me, I wanted to know like, how did you get introduced to Crunchy and that journey?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So I was introduced to Crunchy about 10 years after this whole situation with my mom. So I was already squared away with, like my cleaning products. I felt like that came relatively easily, even if I just used, vinegar and water.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my hair products, my soap, whatever. But the one thing that I really couldn't find a toxin-free version of that actually worked was an eyeliner. That's really all I was looking for. I could, because it's this point, I knew how to read my product labels and I could find eyeliners that were decent ingredients, but they would kind of like run and,
Mm-hmm.
seep into my crow's feet.
Yeah.
Or the other kind of eyeliner that I was finding that worked great was a toxin, a toxic brand that, I knew I didn't want to be putting it on my face and especially by my eyes. So a friend of mine I knew was working for Crunchy and I reached out to her and, told her what I was looking for. And she was like, oh, I can take care of you. So literally eyeliner is all I was looking for. And I wound up looking on the website and was just really impressed with the ingredients and the eco-conscious level of what they put
Mm-hmm.
into their packaging. All of their packaging is glass or paperboard, very easily recyclable. So I wound up hosting an event online where I had some, friends just join us online. And through that, I decided, hey, I'm going to try a few more products because I don't, there's more than I can get than just eyeliner. And so that's how I was introduced to Crunchy.
That's so cool. Much like you, I think it was like 2010 when, again, my sister, she's always the one that like introduces that,
Yeah.
she found out about Pure Haven through
Yep.
Andrea Caesar. And so, probably maybe shouldn't have said her name, but, so anyway, so that's kind of how I got involved in that. and even still, like being in that, what for me, I couldn't find foundation. Like I foundation and primer, like those things I was having a hard time finding. And
Yeah.
that's when my sister met you and introduced me to you. And I will say that since 2019, that's the only foundation I've used. That's the only primer I've used. I recently bought the eyeshadow palettes. I'm not like a huge makeup person, so
Yeah. Yeah.
but I bought the eyeshadow palette and I absolutely love it. So
Yeah.
the mascara also I think I wear. So to me, crunchy, I love what it stands for. I love, their mission behind what they do. Like you, the ingredients are super clean, but like you said, the products are effective,
Yeah.
and because a lot of times, like you said, the running of the eyeliner, there are things that when it is natural, it doesn't, always do exactly what what the toxics unfortunately do. So
Right.
I was very blessed to be introduced to you, and it's again one of those things I never have to think again about what those ingredients are. So I'm very blessed and thankful to have met you. And
Thank you.
for other people that are kind of looking for alternatives, this is definitely a company that again has good morals and values and really stands behind the non-toxic and is doing good for society. So when you're talking about toxins, what are some maybe your top 5 offenders that we could explain to people so that when people get curious and they start looking at their ingredient labels, as you know, it's kind of overwhelming because a lot of things
Absolutely.
are not even in English, or they don't seem like they're in English. They're these big words. So what would be your top 5 things to tell people to look for aside from fragrance? Because obviously we covered that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, it can be completely overwhelming. And I love accessing the EWG, like you mentioned. There's a couple other sites that I like to look at as well. But if I were to mention 5, obviously the fragrance, I would definitely avoid. We talked about that. So PEGs, it'll be all caps PEG, and then it'll be dash and then some number. So it stands for polyethylene glycol. And it's actually, I don't believe it's toxic in and of itself, but it's mixed with a carcinogen in the process. It actually creates 1,4-dioxane, which is a carcinogen. So definitely, I think that one's kind of an easy one to spot because it's all uppercase, PEG, and then a number. Parabens are another one that I recommend avoiding. And paraben might just be the root word. So it might say methylparaben or isobutylparaben or something along those lines. And parabens are a potential hormone disruptor. And there's actually evidence that it can trigger growth response in breast cancer cells. So definitely, I try to avoid parabens. This time of year, as we're moving into the summer, I think sunscreens is a big one. And my family and I actually just got back from a cruise to the Caribbean. And on one of our excursions, the catamaran captain was telling us that we couldn't use sunscreens that contained an O ingredient. And that was just her very simplified way of telling us to avoid oxybenzone and octinoxate. So those are both ingredients in sunscreen. They're UV filters, and they can be carcinogenic and hormone disruptors as well. And in addition to being toxic to us, they have actually contributed to the deterioration of coral reefs, which is why I think they're banned in Hawaii and in Key West. So those are definitely some of the ingredients that I would look for specifically in a sunscreen. And instead of those, I would recommend a non-nanoparticle zinc oxide, and that's going to be a physical barrier instead of that chemical barrier. And then
I wanted to mention that the Sunlight, I think, is that the primer that I use? Yeah. I think it's called Sunlight. So it has that like sunscreen protection in it. Yes. So it's like a 2-in-1, which I love. And I put that on in the summertime. Well, we have sun here most of the year around, so I do wear it a little more often, but I find that it goes on nicely and it goes under foundation nicely, and not that I wear a ton of foundation, but powder, whatever, it just absorbs and it works well. So if anybody is looking for a sunscreen and a primer together, I would say my favorite is Crunchy. So
yeah. And the sunlight, like you said, it absorbs very easily. It doesn't leave you feeling like white or greasy or anything. Right. I've actually never used it as a primer along with my foundation, but it does definitely go on easily underneath, your makeup in and of itself. So that is a great option.
Yeah. It doesn't make it feel like you're layering up a bunch of stuff.
No.
Okay. So what is, again, like if you're talking first products, so does Crunchy have deodorants? Do they have, sunscreen aside from the primer?
No. So the answer is no.
Okay.
At this point, Crunchy doesn't have deodorant and it doesn't have a body sunscreen. The sunlight is a facial SPF. But as far as first products, so like I was saying earlier, the parts of your body that absorb, the most are your head, your armpits, and your groin. I didn't mention that earlier. So really anything you're putting on your face. So I would think about, what do you use the most? If you wear makeup, then maybe you might want to consider swapping out your foundation. If you don't, then you might want to just consider, looking into your, what you wash your face with, or your facial lotion, your moisturizer, like you mentioned, your sunscreen. So those would be really great starting points.
Do you have a favorite shampoo that you guys use as a family?
That's a great question. So my daughter and I both just recently switched over to a shampoo bar, and it's from a company called the Earthling Company or Earthling Co. And we both really like that. I was really surprised, especially I didn't think my daughter would like a shampoo bar, but we've been happy with that. The one thing I would say about that, though, is that unless you get the unscented one, the other ones contain quote unquote natural fragrance. And I'm not 100% sure what's in that. So if you go that route, definitely look for the unscented.
Gotcha. I think, again, that for a consumer side of it, that natural flavors or natural fragrance is also kind of like a natural flavor. It's like, it's so frustrating. Why don't you just list it out?
Exactly.
If it's actually natural, then what is it? And so I think, again, it's just a disservice to us, to the people who are trying to make the changes. And it can be a frustrating process. But I do believe where we are today versus where you and I started years ago, like there are so many options. And that's why like the EWG and Think Dirty are just good for like the basic getting started. So with Crunchy, tell us like how that's helped you, because I know it's your business. So how has that helped you, aside from providing your family with, good products as your business? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I started about 4 years ago. And I decided to start just because I wanted the personal discount. I did not plan on running this as a business by any means. But since I had already hosted an event, I had a few friends that were already hooked and loved it. So I figured, all right, well, I'll join for the discount and then I'll just, share my link with these few friends and that's all I'm going to do. But then I wound up deciding, well, why don't I just, put a few things out here on social media here and there, just letting people know. You never know what'll happen. And lo and behold, something happened. So that holiday season, which I think actually might have been your first purchase, was in 2019 was when I enrolled. Crunchy has legendary Black Friday sales and holiday sales. And so, one thing kind of led to another and the word kind of got out that I was, associated with this company. And I wound up really being able to pay for Christmas that year. And I wasn't planning on doing that at all. So here we are 4 years later. And it has definitely been a really big blessing to my family. We homeschool. I homeschool our 2 kids. So I'm still able to stay home with them and homeschool them. And then also work this business that has helped us to, pay for my car payments at certain times or pay down a credit card bill. I was just talking to someone the other day about how expensive organic groceries are, and well, groceries in general, but then to have the organic seal on top of that is more expensive, and just how this has been helpful for us as really a one income family, as far as my husband working outside of the home, for me to be able to bring in this extra income to be able to help to afford those types of things. So that's been
that's awesome.
phenomenal.
Well, congratulations first on your business, because it has been a few years, and you're very knowledgeable, and with what your mission is and educating people to be able to make those, better decisions for their family, that's more than a paycheck. That's really impacting a family and their health and wellness, especially with, your mission about your mom. It just really seems to have correlated very well. So I'm excited for you to continue on your journey. I know in your bio, because I'm very curious about this, in your bio, you said you have a mini farm. Could you tell us about that? Because I, like you, I'm holistic, organic as much as possible, but I am not a super good with the farming. It's not one of my strengths, unfortunately. So tell me how you came about having a garden and a farm and all of that.
Yeah. So we have a flock of chickens, and we have 2 goats, and then we have some indoor animals. We have dogs and a bunny and things like that. But yeah, I guess my husband grew up with chickens and a goat and a pony. And
oh, wow.
I did not. Yeah. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we were in, like a neighborhood. We didn't have, farm animals. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. So when the kids were little, we decided to get chickens, and we've had them ever since. They've been so much fun. So we, always have eggs. And then at one point we decided, I think goats would be fun. So we added goats to the mix. We were planning on potentially milking the female, but she's not the most cooperative goat in the world. So they're really just pets at this point. And then in the summertime, so I live in New Hampshire, so we do not have a very long growing season, but in the summer we'll have, a little bit of vegetables in the backyard. Nothing, it's definitely a mini farm, nothing crazy.
Well, any farm is a good farm, because it definitely just means you're giving a good life to the animals, you're getting good eggs. So I ask all of this, or I ask everybody that I have on my show about their non-negotiables. So I just want to ask you if you had like a few things that either on a daily basis or just in general for your family, if you have like a few non-negotiables that you've started as little habits that now are something that is just a non-negotiable, just an expectation that you do every day, or just within your family unit.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a great question. I would say 2 of them, one on the product end of things and one on the food end of things. On the product end, and I don't mean to, keep beating this, but it's fragrance. Everyone in my family knows that if there's a product on the shelves and if it has fragrance, we don't use it. And even today, I ran out of our crunchy soap, and we were kind of in like a soap emergency. So I'm like, all right, I'll go to the grocery store, and I'm sure I won't find something, as toxin free, but I'll get something to get us by. And I couldn't find anything without fragrance. So I came home empty handed. I'm like, well, we'll just wash our hands another way till my order comes in. And then on the food end of things, we started teaching our kids really young to look at their labels, and not necessarily for fat or calories, but for ingredients, and specifically artificial colorings. And for a long time, I used to do, when the kids were younger, we would talk about red light, yellow light, and green light foods. So the red light foods are, things that we really shouldn't be eating ever. In reality, I'm sure, we'll have, some Twizzlers here and there, those types of things. But that's an example of a red light food, something that has, artificial colors and corn syrup and that kind of thing. A yellow light food is something that you have sometimes, but not all the time, as far as, it being healthy. And then a green light food would be something that you could eat every day, and it would, benefit your body and help nourish you. So those would be my 2. I love that idea.
I like the red light, green light, yellow light thing for children. I think that's a good, well, actually even for adults, but I think that's a good, simple way of putting it, and you're talking about going to the store and, finding something maybe not a little bit not as non-toxic as what you normally use.
Yeah.
It's a hard no because everything had fragrance, because that's a non-negotiable for you. But in reality, sometimes if you're in a bind and you have to do something, I'm always telling people it's like an 80-20 and 90-10 for the most part. When something affects your family, everybody has that non-negotiable, the line of that it's just a hard no. But, just like with the food, it's like, no, the red foods are just an every once in a while. They're just not something that we keep in the house, or that we all know that they're not healthy, but from time to time it's okay, and then the yellow one. So I like that, the methodology behind that, to getting an understanding, especially to younger kids, who are trying to navigate and figure out like what is healthy and not healthy. So, I really think that as we step forward, going forward in life, the more that we talk about these topics and the more we educate people, we truly are creating a ripple effect of the more people who know what's going on, they can just make better educated decisions. And that's really what I hear you saying, is that's kind of what your mission is, not only for you and your family, but just for anybody who wants to learn. I think you hit the nail on the head with ingredients, because I think if you learn what ingredients are good and what are not and the why, it just affords you to be able to flip something over in a quick hot second to say, oh, well, I see pegs, forget it. It's like, I don't want that in my life. So I think sometimes people think health is complicated and can be hard, and I see why. But then again, from a standpoint of learning and educating, I think there are little small implementations you can do to then take those baby steps to grow into like bigger changes, because I'm sure you didn't just start organic. It's like you learned and then you figured out that, and same with, products. It's like you learned and then you figure out and then you move to the next. So I think,
and one thing I wanted to mention, sorry to interrupt, was that I read a study where they took blood and urine samples of girls that were using, conventional products, and then they had them switch over to toxin-free versions, and their levels of toxicity, they call it their body burden of toxicity, improved within 3 days. So it can be something that can be a pretty quick turnaround. And I also, like you were saying with the 80-20, I feel like it's more important to just start somewhere, even if it's just one product than it is to stress about, oh my goodness, I can't do it all. Because you can't. Nobody can afford to just throw out all their food and all their products and get something new. Right. So if you just start somewhere, and let's say you're swapping out something, for example, that had fragrance, and we talked about how fragrance can contain thousands of undisclosed ingredients. So if you're swapping that out for a toxin-free alternative, you could be saving yourself with just that one product, thousands of chemicals.
Right. And that's such a good point about the 3 day, about the turnaround. Because again, I think people think in their mind, oh, I've already been doing this for 40 years, or and so the whole point is to lessen the burden on your body, whether it's chemicals through your personal care products, whether it's pesticides and herbicides, through your food. It's just making those small shifts. So we would like to ask everybody listening if they would pick just one personal care product that you use on a daily basis. Go look in your bathroom, and if you see fragrance, just make a commitment to yourself to try to find a swap. And you can always obviously reach out to myself, and then Sharon, if you will tell people where they can find you if they're interested in continuing the conversation or getting to know Crunchy a little bit better. Where would they be able to go to hook up with you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is @ameaningfulfocus. And that kind of came about because I was trying to focus on, quite literally something that was meaningful to me and hopefully meaningful to other people. So @meaningfulfocus. And then also on Facebook as well. I have a private Facebook group that I would be happy to welcome, anyone into. And in that Facebook group, we talk about all kinds of different ways to lead a healthy life, but specifically how to read your ingredient labels. And I have a very comprehensive toxin-free master list is what I call it. And it's basically a list of products of all different kinds, not just Crunchy, all different companies that are good alternatives.
Very good. I will drop all of that information into the show notes so that people can go and just click to get to you easily. Is that master list, do you have that in your group, or is that something that somebody can click on, or how is that set up?
Yeah, that's in my group. But if someone's not on Facebook and they want access to it, they could just contact me and I'm happy to send it to them as a PDF.
Okay,
and I can give you my email and stuff that you can put in the show notes as well for that.
So all of Sharon's contact information and where you can find her will all be in the show notes, so that everybody can make sure that they at least start swapping one product. And I think just like myself, I'm pretty sure Sharon, if you have a question or if you have something that you're interested in, even if it's not ending up to be a Crunchy product, she would be more than happy just to guide you, just as I would. So reach out to either one of us and we will help you guys out wherever we can. Thank you so much for joining me, Sharon. It was awesome and I loved talking to you, and I can't wait to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much, Robin.
All right, bye. I loved being here with you today. I hope that you got something from today's mini episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download this episode and share it with someone that you love that needs to hear this message. To stay connected, check out my Instagram and Facebook pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Join my newsletter, my blog, or even opt in for my free junk food cleanse sheet at my website, which is www.livelifebalancedwithrobin. And if you're looking to work one-on-one with someone on your health journey, check out my services page on my website too. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you are allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.